Good morning or afternoon, wherever you're joining us from. Thank you all for joining us for the release of HLAC's Part 4 of the Accreditation Standards, which is Certified Hygienic Testing. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Chrissy Thayer. I'm HLAC's Executive Director. And if any of you are attending APIC this year, I'd love to meet you, so stop by our booth. Before I hand it over to our presenters, I'll go over a few items. We will do questions all at the end, but if you think of anything while we're going through the presentation, just throw it in the question box and we'll get to it when we get to questions. So the webinar will be recorded and uploaded along with the presentation. So if you have to hop off early or you would like to share it with anyone, it will be available on our website. Again, thank you for joining us for Part 4 Certified Hygienic Testing. Today, we will have HLAC President Rocco Romeo, Standards Committee Chair Christina Zergas, and Board Member Paul Jewison here to give you the details and answer some questions. So without further ado, Rocco, I'll hand it over to you.
Thanks very much, Christy. Welcome, everyone, and good morning or good afternoon, wherever you may be. So in today's discussion, we're going to be discussing the Part 4 standards, which HLAC is very excited about on certified hygienic testing. We'll be discussing why Part 4 was developed, the process and protocols for Part 4, and transitioning to Part 4 certification. So just a brief history going back to the history of HLAC and the benefits of having HLAC accreditation to the industry. First of all, it raises the bar for all suppliers. It improves the overall quality of laundries for patient safety. And any facility that's gone through it, to demonstrate that that facility is promoting continuous industry improvement. And new Part 4 is consistent with these objectives. And we're very excited about having this new part of our standards. So everyone's aware that in January of 2023, we introduced the new HLAC standards. Part 1, 2, and 3 were released. So we are now going to be releasing today, effective on July the 1st, Part 4, which is calling testing and validation of process, which I will be discussing in some detail. We will also be releasing later this year a Part 5, which is best practice and emerging issues section of the standards. We are currently looking for an advisory committee. If you're interested to be part of the advisory committee on Part 5, you can visit our website or contact Chrissy as we are looking for committee members for that particular Part 5. So just want to touch first on some of the 2023 standards. It's been about 6 months now that they've been effective. The new standards, there's an emphasis on standards that impact hygienically clean linen. There's more emphasis on functional separation and clean soil issues. With the new standards, we put less emphasis on items that do not directly impact hygienically clean linen, such as eye wash stations. There is now more flexibility for operators who are employing different methods to obtain hygienically clean linen. And we've got a lot of really great feedback so far this year on the new standard, that they're easier to read, that there's less duplication, that they're better referenced. So a lot of really positive feedback from across the board from a lot of our users. And now, today, we're going to be discussing the new Part 4, which is certified hygienic testing to validate your processes. So we're basically going to have two types of accreditation / certification. So you can continue with the current HLAC accreditation process control, which is based on process, which is current Part 1, 2, and 3. And you would achieve a separate accreditation certificate for that particular part of the accreditation. And if you choose to go towards applying for Part 4, you would receive a certified hygienic testing certificate. And that would be a separate certificate. So you can either choose to get both, or you can choose to get the HLAC current accreditation one, which covers Part 1, 2, or 3. You cannot just get a Part 4 without Part 1, 2, and 3. I'm going to touch on that a little bit more in a few minutes. So the certified hygienic testing is a complement of our process-based accreditation. And why did it happen? We had a lot of demand by a lot of accredited laundries for some process validation through testing protocols. As we saw a lot of people changing their process and looking at process control, a lot of laundries spent time on process validation. We strongly believe that a strong process leads to a strong outcome, and it was developed to provide recognition of excellence by laundries who took that process and those outcomes and did further testing to validate those steps that they were taking as a laundry. So part 4, why and how? Well, as everyone's aware, HLAC accreditation is about process, and the new certified hygienic testing is a complement to the accreditation and helps in the validation of the process used. So the laundry must first achieve HLAC accreditation under parts 1, 2, and 3 before applying for the HLAC certified hygienic testing. And as I mentioned earlier, this is that part 4, the HLAC certified hygienic testing, is voluntary. We're excited that in developing part 4, it was developed from the input of many disciplines of the industry, including we had a microbiologist involved, infection control professionals, operators, and other stakeholders. And there are now 2 separate documents that you would achieve. First of all, the accreditation certificate for parts 1, 2, and 3, and then you would get a second certificate for certified hygienic testing certificate for part 4. And there are various distinguishable logos for each one. So current HLAC accreditation for parts 1, 2, and 3 is the same as the current HLAC accreditation. It's a process control accreditation, and no regular testing of linen was required. So if people are happy with that, they can still continue and get the HLAC accreditation covering parts 1, 2, and 3. So the new HLAC certification part 4 is a separate certification for certified hygienic testing. You do not require this in order to receive HLAC accreditation. And this basically validates parts 1, 2, and 3, that a strong process will lead to a strong outcome. So what are the steps to go through part 4? First of all, each laundry will need to identify an accredited lab. The choice of lab is that of the laundry, but there will be certain protocols that lab has to follow in terms of being an accredited lab that can provide microbiological tests. There will be a requirement for microbiological tests to be had quarterly. The samples should be representative of high volume items shipped by the laundry. The laundry must also have policies and procedures regarding test sampling as well as remediation processes for any failed samples. So again, we're looking for a process here of testing protocols and remediation efforts when tests fail. So for ongoing maintenance, on a regular basis, we're expecting each laundry under part 4 will conduct microbiological tests once a quarter. Again, samples need to be representative of high volume items shipped by the laundry. We recommend that different samples from different equipment be rotated as part of that testing protocol. So if you have 3 tunnels that, that you're picking samples that are coming out of each tunnel separately as part of the testing protocols. And all textile samples must pass, or remediation must be documented on all tests. And that documentation will be required along with the backup, so that when an inspector comes to look at it, it's readily available. Recertification and audit. The certification renews every 3 years. So the laundry is required to keep all documentation for a review of 3-year records and audit reports. And the HLAC inspector can request random sampling if necessary. And the timing of the recertification is at the same time as the accreditation under parts 1, 2, and 3. So just to summarize some of the key documentation required under part 4, number 1, proof and documentation of an accredited laboratory. The decision of the lab being used is that of the laundry, not HLAC. Quarterly reports of linen testing for a minimum of 2 quarters is required for initial certification. Documented processes over testing are going to be required, and documented process of remediation process over testing deficiencies. And these are to be submitted to HLAC or the inspector for review. The laundry must also keep all documentation of lab reports and any remediation. The lab does not need to send these directly to HLAC, but the laundry is required to keep them so that they can be reviewed by the HLAC inspector. And reports that are used for other certifications or internal audits or accreditations can be provided to HLAC for linen testing documentation. So if a laundry is already doing testing, then as long as they have records of those testing and they provide the documentation of other items that I've spoken about earlier, then those reports can be used for purposes of Part 4 certification. So we do have some transitional provisions because we do recognize some laundries are partway through an accreditation. So what we're going to be doing is the current accredited laundries can apply for Part 4 certification as of July 1st, 2023. The Part 4 certification for any of these transitional Part 4s will expire at the end of the current accreditation cycle. So if your current HLAC accreditation expires, let's say September of 2024, then any Part 4 that's provided to you will be expire at that same time. The pricing will be prorated based on that as well. We will be providing a promotional price for all laundries who wish to obtain Part 4 certification if they apply by September 30th, 2023, and they complete the process by December the 20th, 2023. And we will start taking applications for Part 4 on July the 1st, 2023, and these will be available on our website on that day for application. And you can see going back the new logo as well. We've also placed a quick reference guide in Part 4 of the standards to assist anyone who's going to go through the process. So this is a step that we're recommending that laundries follow in order to obtain the Part 4 certification. And it's a pretty straightforward process. We've tried to make it as user-friendly as possible. And of course, if you have any questions, we will answer them today, or as you're going through the process, we're more than happy to answer them through the HLAC office as well. So that's an overview of Part 4. We wanted to keep it straightforward and simple. So we also wanted to give an opportunity, because it is a pretty new area for everyone, if they have any questions regarding Part 4, and this is the opportunity now to ask those questions.
All right, go ahead and type your questions in the question box or in the chat. We have one question so far. Will HLAC provide a list of accredited labs?
At the current time, no. We can. We expect the laundry to do the research to find that, but we definitely can assist with that at a future date in terms of providing some labs that we know are accredited. But the choice of the lab still remains that of the laundry, but we will at a later date provide some, if laundries are having difficulty finding one on their own, then we would be more than happy to suggest some labs.
And I will add to that too, because that's a great question. I will add that in working with our microbiologist, that criteria, so, just geographically where all these facilities are, we put criteria in those guidelines, basically what to look for. There's certain certifications, so that's what's in the guidelines, so that you would know what to ask for, that they meet certain criteria.
All right, another question. Can we use the test results from other programs?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, you can use the test results from another program. Again, as long as they've been done recently, and they're successful, as long as you, along with those results, you also have protocols and processes in place to accompany those. So absolutely, those can be used or internal. Some places use their chemical supplier. As long as it's done from an accredited lab, as long as those results are coming from an accredited lab, then they can be used for purposes of Part 4 certification.
Great. If you are in the process of scheduling your laundry's first HLAC certification, can you include the hygienic testing at the same time?
Yes, you can, provided that you do already have samples that are available. So we have the requirement is that you have two quarters of samples available before you apply for Part 4. So that's no problem.
Great.
And we also have the transition, if you're already accredited, of course, that you can apply for Part 4 up to the date of your accreditation, as long as you meet all the criteria.
Perfect. All right, next question. How much does this part cost the laundry?
We will be releasing that information the week of June the 25th.
And we'll have that on our website, so you can go ahead and look there, and we'll send out some emails as well.
Yeah.
All right, is there any other questions from anyone?
No, we're very excited at HLAC. A lot of work has gone into this Part 4, and we think it's a great step forward to meet a lot of needs in the marketplace, and very excited to get it launched. We've had a lot of interest from a lot of laundries, and we think this is going to really fast track quickly with a lot of interest from different laundries applying. So we're if you have any questions, feel free to contact us. We're more than happy to answer all your questions.
Great. Well, if there are no questions at this time, I would just like to add again, if you're interested in the advisory committee for best practices, we encourage you to apply for that. We'll put that link in the chat. And as I was just talking, there was another question. So there are at least 2 different tests that I'm aware of, USP 62 and RODAC testing. Will either suffice?
I'll take that one, Rocco. Yeah,
No
it is
problem.
it's the RODAC testing, and then also the USP 62 panel that'll be done twice a year. And that's there's a table listed in our guidelines that has those specifics on there.
Perfect.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, I think, oh, we have one more. Do we need to choose a facility that does gram negative as well?
So the criteria for the laboratory that processes those textiles, the criteria what to look for is written in the document so that you know what to ask. And that section was written by the microbiologist.
Great. All right.
And I do say that I do want to somewhat qualify my answer a little bit too, is having that expertise at the table, because a lab is not a lab is not a lab. So there is a expertise with a textile laboratory. So that's why we were really very deliberate to put that criteria in the standards so that the plant facilities know what to ask for. I mean, HLAC is always available to help clarify that, but we were very deliberate to put that in the guidelines just because there does have to be some specificity of what type of laboratory you're using. So it should be spelled out fairly easily in that document, but if not, we're here to help.
Great. Thank you, Chris.
Mm-hmm.
We have another question. I know that you cannot give us a definite answer on this, but based on your experience, how much should we expect a round of testing at a lab to cost us?
That'll vary. So, I mean, we can give you some labs and to get some of that pricing. I really don't want to get into that discussion because it can vary by geographical zone, etc. Some places are starting to use their chemical suppliers, have the capability to provide that as part of the value add for their chemistry service that they provide in the plant. So I would check that out as well as an option, as long as it's an accredited lab that would also meet the criteria. But we would be more than happy to, look at some lab and you can inquire there accordingly. Chris, I don't know if you want to add anything to that.
No, I agree with that. Maybe that is something that we could just probably come up with a range. It's something we could provide our customers here. So that's something we can just add to our list as a follow-up, I believe.
Sure. Yeah. We'll follow up and get back to you on that.
Okay, thank you both. Another question, we currently utilize an EMSL lab. My understanding is this an acceptable lab based on standards?
That I cannot answer off the top of my head. So there are some criteria for the laboratories, as I pointed out. So just off the top of my head, I cannot answer that. But if once whoever's asking the question, once you look at this guideline, and if you need some additional help answering that, HLAC is more than happy to walk through that with you.
There's a criteria, they need to be accredited. So yeah, once you look at that, I agree with Chris. It meets that criteria and you're able to provide all the certifications for that lab that meet the criteria, then it can be used. So, but once those part 4, you'll see them, you'll be able to make that assertion fairly quickly.
Thank you. Next question. We use our chemical vendor lab, Ecolab. Is this acceptable?
As long as they provide the necessary accreditation, and given Ecolab size, I would imagine that won't be an issue. It's a qualified yes, as long as all the documentation is there.
Perfect. All right. Do we have any more questions while we wait for any more to come in? Rocco or Chris, do you have any other things you'd like to add?
I think it was also on one of the slides. We did provide like a quick reference guide, which was something that we thought would be helpful to our customers, because as you read through the standards, you know how standards are written, 2 point whatever. So I think the quick reference guide is also very helpful, because at a glance, that information you need is there. But as you're walking through this, because for many it would be a new process, we would appreciate some feedback as well, so that perhaps there might be clarifying points that we need to provide at a later date. But we were really deliberate to have multiple folks look at these standards from all different aspects to make sure, hey, are they clear? Are they concise? A quick reference guide to walk the plant through it. So hopefully they're fairly easy to walk through and provide you the processes that you need to go through on this journey of certification. But if not, HLAC is very helpful. Really will be very helpful for you to walk through that. And also it gives us feedback when we do adapt these standards at a later date, how to clarify, maybe there's some confusing points, etc. So that's the only thing that I would add.
Great. Thank you so much, Chris. At this time, we don't have any more questions, but again, if you think of anything later, please reach out to us. We're happy to answer any questions you have. We're very excited about this new program. There was a lot of work put into it. So thank you all for those who put hours into this. Rocco, do you have anything else before we kind of close out for the day?
No, I just want to thank everyone who has participated in today's webinar. And thanks for your attending, and we're more than happy to answer any question anyone has in the future and get this program launched. So thanks to everybody.
Thank you. Again, we'll be sending out the recording and presentation for this. The standards are live on our website, so feel free to look through those. And thank you all again for joining us today. It was great to have you.
Thank you, everybody.